What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode on my channel. As always, I'm Jay, and today I'm joined by my friend Randy here, the horror expert right here.
Oh, thanks,
and
man.
we're doing this great video today, which is a Halloween retrospective. And as you said before I turned this camera on properly to get this right takedown, you said 40 years later, man.
40 years later, man.
1978, first Halloween, and now we're here in 2018.
Yeah, they just had the convention this past weekend in Pasadena, which is where the first film was shot.
That's wild.
And I have not gone yet, but someday I will. It's on my bucket list.
Yeah, you know, I say that about San Diego Comic-Con, but I think that you're going to make it to that one more than I am San Diego Comic-Con.
You gotta drug me and get me on a flight, because I won't fly, man. I won't fly.
Hey, you know what, man? I don't blame you. And unfortunately, we don't have any trains right there. And we are
celebrating with our pumpkin or apple pumpkin pie drinks.
Something like that. It's alcohol. It's all good. So
something to do with Halloween, you know.
Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago.
Halloween, man, legacy horror series, credited as the first slasher film, at least in U.S. terms. It was the first one to kind of break through the mainstream. And like we said, 1978. There's a handful of like iconic horror like people that end up going into the mainstream. You got Jason Voorhees, you got Freddy Krueger, and Michael Myers, arguably the classiest broad of the bunch. You know? Yeah,
it wasn't technically a slasher, more classier. It was more of a thriller. At least that's what it started off as.
Exactly. And you can tell how evident that is with how little to no blood there is in the first film. Yeah, but it shocks you.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
You got horror fans that like the thrills, and then you get horror fans that like the gore, and this is definitely more, for the most part, less gory, more thrills.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, this movie was actually influenced by Black Christmas. A lot of people don't know that, but this was originally going to be a one and done. They didn't want to do anything else after this. They wanted it to be really shocking and just grab the audience by the balls. Yeah. And then it just turned into a slash fest after that. So, but the first one, I mean, you would look at it as a horror thriller because there was really no blood in it. The violence was tame. Everything was off screen, so it made you think more, and you were terrified because you didn't know exactly what was going on.
And I mean, the score, the directing by John Carpenter, who is a great, director in and of his own right and everything like that. And not just limited to horror movies. I mean, freaking The Thing, Escape from New York.
Well, his first movie, Assault on Precinct 13.
That's true, yep.
This is why he got Donald Pleasence in the film. Donald Pleasence's daughter was so obsessed with Assault that she asked Donald Pleasence to do this film for her, and that's how they were able to land such a huge star in doing this movie. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy how it all came full circle and how this movie happened on a budget of, what, $100,000?
That's unheard of nowadays. I mean, it would at least be like 3 or 4 million.
Tops.
And that's an indie movie, I would assume, too, half the time.
And with this, too, this was like the biggest independent film of all time when it originally came out. They weren't expecting this to be as huge as it was. And this just word of mouth kept on picking up. And this became one of the biggest independent films of all time.
Definitely iconic, classic, nothing to take away from that. You can't, that's the king as far as I'm concerned. And we'll be going along the other parts of the crown, as it were, quote unquote. But starting with 1981's Halloween 2.
Universal Pictures presents Halloween 2. More of the night he came home.
There was nothing within him, neither conscience nor reason, that wasn't even remotely human.
Is this some kind of a joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
There is no place to hide. He will always find you.
It's the same night that Michael came.
Yeah, Takes
same
place,
night.
like right when the first one ends.
Which I appreciated and I enjoyed that it's kind of picking up right after that. And I think that was really cool how they did it like all in the same night. And like as far as story-wise, that's one of the main things that I really like about it is the fact that it is picking up right where it left off and everything.
Yeah, and Jamie Lee Curtis all of a sudden had enough time to do her hair over because it went from one extreme to the next.
Yeah,
that always weirded me out as a kid. I never knew what the heck was going on. I'm like, her hair changed. What the hell?
Well, the thing is because between then and the first film, she became a household name a lot more, right?
She had a shorter haircut. She had to get a wig, but I mean, the fact that it does start from right where the first one ends, like for me as a kid growing up, like you never really saw that. It was just the sequel would happen.
Exactly.
But this one picks up right where the first one left off. And I enjoyed it.
What's this? It's a Celtic word. It means the Lord of the Dead.
Mr. Garrett?
It was like the tradition. It was always on TV on Halloween night. It was part 2, and I grew up loving part 2 just because I remember my childhood, like Halloween 2 being on TV and watching it all the time.
Yeah.
So it really did leave a mark on people.
As far as sequels go, it's always hard to top or even get to that level. This one probably like a couple notches down, but this time they opted for more blood. They actually showed some more violence, and Michael went there. And of course, in this one, I mean, I love Michael when his eyes are just like black like that. And that's the thing too, is like you have to like black out the eyes because that way it gives the full effect by seeing his
eyes, the devil's eyes.
Yeah, exactly. I noticed how tight the mask looked on his face too.
You know what's so funny? I didn't find this out until like a couple of years ago. When Dick Warlock actually was like, "No, this was the original mask. We put it in a shoebox and hid it somewhere." You know, years after that, we pulled it out and we used this for the film because it always looked different. It looked dirtier. It was the same mask. It was just he was like, "I had a big head. What do you want?" He's like, "Nick Castle had a tiny head, and I had a big head."
Exactly. Well, Nick Castle had to have a tiny head because he had all that hair too when he was being Michael too, right?
Which makes, I would think it would add more to that mask, make it more fuller because he had that giant fro.
Yeah, he did.
But part 2, I mean, for what it was I wouldn't say it was one of the best sequels, but a lot of people would like to say it was just because how it takes place right after the first one. Yeah. But to me, it holds a special place in my heart for a Halloween film.
Yeah.
So.
And I think right there, if you wanted to stop, you would get a sense of finality in that because obviously at the end of that one, Michael and Dr. Loomis die in a fiery blaze. You know, I mean, obviously they couldn't leave well enough alone, but that's after the next one we're going to discuss, which is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
You don't really know much about Halloween. Halloween. The barriers will be down between the real and the unreal.
Totally revamped. There's no Michael. And actually, Halloween is a movie within this universe, which is hilarious.
Yep. Well, part 3, the reason why it came out so fast, too, because part 2 did so well and people wanted more Michael Myers. Yeah. But they didn't want to continue the Halloween franchise with Michael Myers. They wanted to go on their own route and make films about Halloween on Halloween night and, certain things happening. In this one, with the whole thing with the Silver Shamrock, the masks, but people loved Michael Myers so much that they wanted to hate this movie and they never wanted to give it a chance. Yeah. But I love this movie. If you take Michael Myers out of it,
if you take the expectation of Michael Myers, if you take the Halloween name out and just call it Season of the Witch or whatever, or something like
Silver
that.
Shamrock.
Halloween, the child. You happen to know anything about this Cochran?
All I can tell you, mister. Watch out. He's watching you, friend, I guarantee you that.
Plus there's like androids and shit in this too.
Which played by Dick Warlock.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. And it's like that, I don't know, it was crazy.
I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis is in this. She's the voiceover for The Curfew. Yep. You have Dick Warlock in it. Deborah Hill and John Carpenter were both on board for this film. Yeah.
And John Carpenter did the music for this one again too, didn't he?
Yeah. And the music in this was phenomenal. This was probably one of his best after Halloween. Me personally, I think. And then you had the annoying 8 more days till Halloween, Halloween, Halloween.
Absolutely.
Which, when you're done watching this movie, that's all you can think about after that.
Trick or treat. Hey, Mr. Cochran, just what is the final process?
Fellas, I was just kidding.
Witchcraft. To us, it was a way of controlling our environment.
Hey!
This probably would have been like the Twilight Zone of film series, probably, if it had gone according to plan, too.
Well, I mean, this is part 3 for Halloween is like part 5 for Friday the 13th. Jason wasn't in it.
Yep.
It was a different killer. Still had the same mask, but it wasn't Jason, and this is what they were doing with this film, too. They just wanted to branch off and try something different, but, I mean, everybody was on board. It's from the original, from the second one, so it still had that feeling of Halloween, and Michael Myers is in this movie, because there's a commercial at the bar where they show for Halloween.
Yep.
So you still get Michael Myers in this movie.
They were This is like a low-key trolling back in the day, I'm sure.
Tom Atkins with that beautiful bushy mustache.
Operator, this is an emergency.
But yeah, I remember the first time I saw it, I gave it a shot because I hated it as a kid. I was like, I'm not going to watch this film. It doesn't have Michael Myers.
Yeah.
It took me the longest time to buy this movie and put it in my collection just because of that.
Yeah.
And then when I finally did, I was so happy. I was so glad.
Yeah.
And now this movie is blown up and has become like a cult film.
Yeah.
Like, people love this movie. It's gotten its special editions. It's all kinds of crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie is huge now. Like, people love this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It went from being hated to now it's being loved.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I love it. Yeah, it's good. If you haven't seen it yet, watch it. Give it a shot.
You've got to believe me!
They're going to kill us. All of us.
Stop it!
The world's going to change tonight, Doctor. Happy Halloween.
Stop it!
Definitely watch it. Definitely a nice little kind of escape from the Michael Myers story. Even though we love Michael, you
take a break.
Take a break.
Makes you want him even more when part 4 comes out.
Exactly. And that leads us into part 4, which is the return of Michael Myers, which came out in 1988. And that's a big stretch right there.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, 6 years? It took you 6 years to find out a story to put Michael Myers into?
Now, Michael Myers has come home. He has returned for one more night of unholy terror.
But basically, this one was one of the many timeline retcons that's going on, as many people have mentioned before, but still it rings true. And this time, Dr. Loomis is back.
Yep.
They're not dead. They survived somehow.
Yeah.
I think they mentioned, I forget, did they mention like something about a fire or something?
Yeah, they survived an explosion.
Because Michael's got some burns on his hands and Dr. Loomis has got something on his face.
A fried egg on his face.
Michael!
He's here to kill that little girl and anybody who gets in his way.
The story behind this movie was like on deadline because there was a strike back in the day, an actor film strike, and they rushed this movie into production and they wanted to get it made as soon as before that strike took place. So this movie came into play, and it might have never been if they waited a couple more days. But yeah, people were fiending at the mouth for this. They wanted Michael Myers back.
Of course.
He's been gone for so long. You needed Michael Myers.
Oh, God!
Who's gonna be next?
Jamie Lloyd, who is she the daughter or is she the niece?
She's the niece of
She's
Michael
the
Myers.
niece of Michael
She's
Myers.
the daughter of Laurie Strode.
That's right,
which
yep.
died in a car accident. Michael Myers came back because he wanted to kill off his bloodline, and that was the whole purpose of this film.
Yep, and this begins the 3 films that would be dubbed the Thorn Trilogy. And for an example here, sir, would you be so kind? Would you be so kind as to show the audience the dedication there?
Thorn tattoo.
Might have to get a pickup shot of that and zoom in there. But yeah, he's got the Thorn tattoo like Michael does in these films.
I'm not killing people though, so
he's not killing people. But yeah, it starts the Thorn Trilogy because they kind of tied this little backstory that Michael's condition is a curse.
It was a curse. But you don't get into that in this film.
Yeah.
That you don't get into the whole thorn and the curse until you get into part 5. And even part 5 doesn't explain it. It just happens. And then you find out in part 6. But still being on part 4, part 4 was the start of this trilogy. It was the Jamie Lloyd trilogy.
Yeah.
Danielle Harris, she came in and she filled the shoes of Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yep.
And I think in this film, for her age, playing this role, like, huge moment. Like, her character in this film was so, like, you were so, like, drawn into her. Like, you felt so bad. Like, this little girl was being, chased
Absolutely.
by her uncle trying to kill her and everybody else in their way. But her role, her performance, like, man, every time I see it, I'm always like, I feel so bad for her.
Now, before we go on to part 5, the part 4, what's one of the things that sticks out to people is the mask and everything. And I remember you saying that the mask actually wasn't so bad in your opinion.
Yeah, the mask was it was actually probably one of the cheapest masks because all they did was just spray paint it. But to me, the mask was more iconic because me growing up in the 80s, and I'm an 80s baby, that was like the mask that you saw everywhere.
Yep.
I feel like you saw that mask more than you saw the original mask.
Yeah, the Shatner mask.
Was, on the cover of Fangoria magazine. The box art for Halloween 4 was always the original mask, but when you turn it over, you had the mask in the film.
Yeah.
And it always stuck out. Like, a lot of people didn't like it because it looked too, I don't know, his eyes were too weird in it, and he looked
a little gentle.
Intimidating. Yeah, he looked like a kind, nice guy that wasn't going to kill you. But, yeah, for me, I mean, I love that mask.
Yeah.
That mask, to me, that was one of my favorite masks.
Yeah.
Just because I grew up with it,
It gets a bad rap. And again, like we were talking a little bit before, I'm warming up to that mask. And then, of course, Michael, it's this one, he gets gunned down at the end.
Yeah.
And then, like...
And he gets shot into a well.
Oh,
and they ended this film where Jamie was supposed to become the new killer. Do you remember?
Yep, I remember that.
She held him by the hand and somehow transferred his...
The
evil into her. And I don't know if you haven't seen it yet. Spoilers.
Yeah, guys, this is going to be spoiler filled.
Kills her mother at the end of the film,
Yeah.
and it was supposed to continue where she now takes the throne and she becomes the new Michael Myers, which I would have never liked.
No.
Maybe it was a great concept back then.
Yeah.
But if she became the new Michael Myers, I mean,
you just felt so bad for her throughout this whole film, and then all of a sudden, boom!
You wanted her to come out of this, and everything was going to be okay, but it wasn't at the end. If you haven't seen it yet, it was not. Then you have part 5.
We both know he's alive, but you know where he is.
Halloween 5.
I don't know what the hell we got in this one, but the 5th one, I mean, this was the mother of all inconsistencies. The mask was different. He doesn't have burns on his hand. And they didn't follow through on, well, thank goodness they didn't follow through on the ending from the 4th one. So this one, they just completely ignore that. But maybe I think they kind of didn't say anything, but she still kills her stepmom. But the thing is like something from Michael got into her. Because now wasn't she in like a mental hospital?
Yeah, because they don't actually mention the fact that she killed her mom. They mention the fact that she tried to. So I'm thinking her mother is still alive.
Okay.
Probably scarred for life, but her mother was still alive. And then she became a mute kid.
Yeah.
She didn't talk. And it was like, what the hell is this? Like, all of a sudden, this girl went from screaming her lungs out into part 4 to like she could barely say 2 words.
Yeah.
And I think that's what ruined the film, because you had such amazing talent in this little girl that you couldn't use it.
This time, they're ready. This time, he's unmasked. And this time, he's back with a vengeance.
She just wasn't... She was mute the whole film.
Exactly.
And then you had all the annoying friends in this movie.
Yeah.
You had Michael crying in this movie.
You know what? That part right there got to me a little bit. I'm like, what? He's... Like, he takes off his mask, and then this is when she can actually talk, and she's kind of getting through to him, and then all of a sudden he snaps out of it and goes and tries to stab her again. And then this is like the one other film that actually shows Michael's face from the first one.
You see a glimpse of it, yeah.
A little glimpse of it.
You see a glimpse of it, and that's when the tear starts coming down the cheek, and you're like...
No burns, no nothing, no, you know, I mean...
This guy's not so scary. Oh, and it was from the eye that he got poked in. Or in his eyes got shot in Halloween 2.
Yeah.
So this guy's got perfect vision, you know. But yeah, part 5, that mask was probably one of the worst masks.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. It was too big. The neck looked so huge. This was the mask where he was starting to bald. The hair was just going back. It kept on going back.
Yep.
Giant nose. But it's like, when I watched it as a kid, you were like, all right, this ends right where part 4, like this begins right where part 4 ends. So where is this mask? Why is this mask happening? Like, why do we have this? When did he have time to go get a new mask? It just...
Well, it can't be as annoying as, jumping from Batman Returns to Batman Forever and then Batman and Robin, Oh, what? No.
We didn't get no Michael nipples in this one.
No. Thank God.
But he was a bigger guy in this too. I mean, he was much more taller. He was much more bulkier. And it, like that as a kid when you were watching him and you watched him from the first movie to the next one, on to the next one, you were growing up with these films, you always wondered, like, why does he keep changing? Like, why did they do this? Why do they have that mask? So yeah, I never liked this mask. One of the worst, I'd have to say, was one of the worst.
Absolutely.
Masks. One of the worst in the franchise films.
Yeah.
This film was one of the worst. But we're going to get to some other films that are a lot worse than this one.
Do you know why we celebrate Halloween? A long, long time ago, it was a night of great power.
This is the last entry, and this is where the Thorn Trilogy actually gets its namesake and kind of explanations from, because this is where we see the whole like Celtic and all curse and all that stuff about Michael basically having been cursed from when he was a young age to do all this and kill all of his bloodline and everything like that.
When the days grew short, all across the land, huge bonfires were lit. Oh, there was a marvelous celebration, and they dressed up in costumes, hoping to ward off the evil spirits.
In this one right here, if you didn't know, this actually has 2 cuts. I think this is the only one that's had 2 cuts because...
well, yeah, this is the actual, like, this movie, there was a theatrical and then there was the producer's cut.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, the producer's cut became a bootleg that was in search of all of the fans. It was I even bought it on eBay. I think I paid like $30 for it when it first came out. I think it was just because this movie was all over the place that people were like, there's another movie that's going to explain what actually happens in this film, and it actually still doesn't. No. But it was, it was just a completely different film. It was a different soundtrack. It had a different ending. The beginning was changed. It was
major plot points.
It was just a completely different movie. This was a huge film because this is where Jamie Lloyd dies.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is in the theatrical cut, she's like killed in like right at the beginning.
Yeah, he pushes her onto this type of meat grinder machine, but she actually gets shot in the producer's cut. The thing I hate the most is the fact that they didn't want to bring back Danielle Harris. They tried to work out a deal, and they mentioned to her that they were just going to kill her off, but they didn't want to pay her the money to get her in this film. It was just another reason why this film didn't make any sense. It was like she was just a little girl, and now all of a sudden she's in her mid-20s. Like, what the hell is going on here?
Well, I know that in the producer's cut, they keep Jamie Lloyd, who's now an adult and has her own baby, alive longer.
By Michael.
Yeah. Uncle Dad Mikey.
Which is so bizarre. I don't know
Michael stabs. He doesn't penetrate, though. But fun fact, Paul Rudd's in it.
Paul Stephen Rudd.
And this is the movie that killed his middle name, essentially.
Introducing Paul Stephen Rudd. And he hates to talk about this movie. This was the last we saw of Dr. Loomis.
It was.
This was his last film.
Yeah, because Donald Pleasance had passed away. And the thing about it is again, I hate to say this, but I feel like I could see him kind of being a little bit more frail in this movie and the way he talked.
But man, that son of a bitch came back for every movie.
He did, and
he wanted to do him till like part 23.
And obviously, depending on again which cut you watch, you get kind of a weird send off or an even weirder send off. Because in the producer's cut, which was the original way, he actually becomes tied to Michael permanently.
Yeah, it's like they want to pass the torch to him.
Yeah.
He pulls down his sleeve, and now he's got the thorn mark. And then the film ends with him screaming.
Yep.
Which I was just telling you before we shot this, that somebody actually had a cool idea that maybe him screaming and maybe him freaking out gave him a stroke and a heart attack. And, maybe the film ended with him, passing away. Yeah. And that was, I think, to me, that would be a better send-off as just not knowing what the hell happened or what the explanation for the ending of this movie, because we never actually got it.
Going back to the Go cut really quick. Tommy ends up beating the shit out of Michael somehow.
Yep.
And then it just ends with like an empty mask, right?
Yep. With a syringe.
Yep. Yep.
And I still don't know. Being a huge fan, I have no clue what that means. They see these little things on the walls of birth going backwards, where you start off as an adult and you go back into a child. So I always assumed that they injected him with something that turned him back into a child.
Yeah.
Which it still makes no sense. I've seen this movie a 1,000 times, and I still have no clue what happens at the end of this movie. But the producer's cut is a lot weaker, because you see Tommy grabs all these ruins, and just puts them on the ground and sets them up, and it just stops Michael dead in his tracks.
Yeah. I feel like that would have been a weak ending.
This movie was all over the place. It was just there to make a quick buck. The director wasn't really in it. He got a 3-film deal, and he was just there to make the money. So it was just, I think a lot of people have their perspectives of this film. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people love it. Me personally, I love it because it was the first Halloween that I saw in theaters. It's actually one of the first Halloweens in a while that feels like a Halloween film. So I think that's why I love it more. I know it's not a great film by any means, but you got to check out the producer's cut if you ever get a chance. It's worth checking out. It's a different film.
It's 1998 in a remote California town at a secluded private school.
We could have a Halloween party, just the 4 of us. We could have a roaming orgy.
I love the way this man thinks.
This was when 90s horror was like coming into play. It was like
Dimension Films picked up them too, right? Yeah. And Dimension Films obviously known for Scream and different things as well.
With all the success of Scream and all the teen slashers, I know you did last summer and Urban Legends and all that kind of stuff. When that era was coming out, they wanted to bring Halloween back. And why not? Horror was so huge. It was like horror was reinvented again. Yep. Not in a good way, but it was reinvented, and people want to see more. And they said, why not bring back Jamie Lee Curtis and let's end this. This was originally supposed to be the last Halloween, but we never get that. Michael never dies. Come on.
No, Michael never dies.
One teacher is living in fear.
I'm not who you think I am. I changed my name when I went into hiding.
That's terrible. Take off your clothes.
My brother killed my sister.
How'd he do that?
With a really big kitchen knife.
I mean, in this film, it was different to see her again more on the offensive. At a certain point, she was really sticking it to Michael. I mean, not uncharacteristic. I would say. I would say that it made sense for her to kind of be more like, okay, this man has haunted me for my entire life and everything like that. So now I have to like protect my son. She was basically like Mama Bear in this movie.
Yeah.
Because he was coming, and then I remember the scene in this one, right, where he's coming and she's in the room with all the halls and he's like flipping all the tables and she's running and stuff, and then all of a sudden she gets the axe and starts like come at me, or like
that was probably the best part in that whole movie.
What's going on, baby?
I don't know. This is a sick joke.
Now,
Come on!
the face of good and the face of evil will meet one last time.
But this, this movie, she wanted to come back and give a send-off to the fans, and she came back and said she really wanted to do this, and they talked to John Carpenter, and John Carpenter was like, I want no part of this. So I don't want no part. You can go, I give you, go do this movie, do your thing, and good luck to you. But she wanted to come back and kind of give it like a send off to fans, and I don't think it worked. I never really enjoyed this Halloween. This is probably one of my least favorites. I mean, the mask changes in this movie 3 times.
His eyebrows are definitely penciled on a lot more. He looks like a chula in this movie. Like
we get a CGI mask in this movie.
Yeah.
That's CGI mask.
And again, they had the problem where you're showing his damn eyes through the mask.
Too much.
This summer, terror won't be taking a vacation. Halloween H2O.
It's Halloween. I guess everyone is entitled to one good scare. I've had my share.
The whole movie, he looks so very sympathetic, and it's like, that's not him. You came back, you wanted to make this movie with the two of them coming face to face.
Yeah. At the end shot though, where he's like reaching out to her, and I'm like, really?
He looked like a little kid.
Really? But then she obviously like whacks his head with the axe, and it's comes right off like Highlander.
Which I saw this in theaters. Did you see this in theaters?
I definitely didn't. I was 7.
You didn't sneak in and see this?
Nope. I was watching RoboCop and The Crow and shit like that though when I was little, so I probably could have.
Still good movies to watch. When
Great
you're 7.
movies, man.
But I saw this in theaters, in that moment when she cuts his head off, I remember the audience going like crazy. Like it was cool to see that in an audience, like a full blown audience.
Yeah.
But I just never expected that. I didn't expect him to go out the way he went out in this movie. It just.
Yeah.
It was one of my least favorites. I don't really want, like, I don't have much to say about this movie because the era that I grew up in, it didn't feel like Halloween in this. It took place in California.
Yeah.
She wasn't Laurie Strode. She was
her made up name for witness protection or whatever.
Yeah. Tate.
Who cares what her name was? She's Laurie Strode.
But H2O, it fell flat. It was so hyped up.
Yeah.
It was expected to be this great movie, and it really wasn't. It was like it felt like a Lifetime original.
Well, not for nothing, but this next film
is a lot worse.
It's a lot worse.
Tomorrow night, you will enter the childhood home of our most brutal mass murderer. The home has been rigged up with several cameras, but for the most part, the audience will see only what you see.
Are you sure they're not just putting us in some house with hidden cameras in the shower?
This is gonna be fun. The windows will be boarded up, and all the doors will be locked shut behind them. No one will be allowed to leave until the show is over. Let the dangertainment begin.
You think this is the one that he used to, do his thing?
Busta Rhymes starring in Halloween Resurrection.
Dangertainment.
Someone on the producer's line who was like a bunch of old men were probably like, oh, what do the kids like these days? Oh, Busta Rhymes. Oh, he's cool.
Busta Rhymes is cool.
Put him in there. Oh, what's cool? Reality TV? Okay, we'll put that in there.
One flash and you could light up 1,000 computer screens.
You are like this close to getting voted off the island.
Let's bring back Jamie Lee Curtis and we'll kill her off like the first 15 minutes of the film.
She was in the trailer. I thought she was gonna like actually come through at the end of something like that.
No, but she's on that poster, beautiful like an H2O. Like you're thinking this girl's gonna survive. No, she dies.
Wait, what just happened? We just lost Bill's camera. There's somebody in the hall.
You have Busta Rhymes, Kung Fu, and Michael Myers. Like,
trick or treat, motherfucker.
Michael Myers is a killer shark. I didn't care who died. I didn't care who lived. Nobody cared about anything that was going on in this film.
Did you care about Michael?
No.
No.
Well, I mean, Brad Loree played Michael Myers in this film, and I think he did an okay job as Michael Myers. I thought he was at points intimidating, or he was a little bit scary. But then we go back again, and you see his eyes all the time in the mask, and you can't do that.
Somebody please help us.
Hello, Michael. I knew you'd come sooner or later.
H2O. I mean, you have this big, huge movie. It was supposed to be the last one. You cut Michael Myers' head off. All of a sudden, you have a sequel, Halloween Resurrection. The beginning of the film, he supposedly switches his costume on a paramedic.
I always had that problem, though, because wasn't the paramedic like 50 pounds heavier than him?
Yeah, and
right?
And this paramedic didn't seem to think to take off the mask at the ending of H2O and be like, wait. I know in this movie they explain Michael...
He cut his
or
voice
he
box
crushes
out or
his
whatever.
larynx.
Yeah.
But you mean to tell me this guy didn't want to take off his mask and be like, hey, I'm not Michael Myers. I'm a paramedic. Please don't chop my head off. I don't know. This was directed by the same guy who directed Halloween 2, Rick Rosenthal. He directed Halloween 2, which was a great film.
Why is Rick Rosenthal get the sloppy seconds? What the hell is the matter with this guy?
Trick or treat, mother.
I would put this on the bottom of all the Halloweens. This would be the lowest. And I hate H2O because H2O has a CGI mask, but Halloween Resurrection. Oh my God. No.
Tonight's brutal murders was described by police as Manson-like in its viciousness. 3 people brutally murdered and a 10-year-old boy being held in custody.
For the time, I think Rob Zombie was probably a good pick to kind of bring back Michael's bloody roots, as it were.
I was so excited when they meant. I loved House of a Thousand Corpses, and you know I liked everything that he did
at that point.
I thought he was very creative, and I was very excited. I was on board for this movie.
Yeah,
he was a huge fan of the first Halloween, and he wanted to do justice by this movie. And here we are. This is what we got.
And obviously, he has to put his wife in there because
she has to be in everything.
Exactly.
The first 30 minutes of this film, it wasn't a Halloween movie. You just had people randomly swearing, and every 2 minutes he had to say this, and I'm like, you don't have to be shocking to make a Halloween film. You go back, you look at the roots. The first one was so sophisticated. It was a thriller. It was very classy. We talked about that.
Yep. Michael wasn't a damaged individual. He was a young kid who was just normal, and all of a sudden, one night he just snaps and kills and stabs his sister.
Yeah, no explanation.
Listen, be careful tonight. A lot of nutcases come out on Halloween.
I don't think this is where the franchise should have headed. He obviously, they gave him free range to do his own thing. This is what he wanted. This is what he envisioned, and I give him credit for that. And I do give him credit for coming up with this movie because he got a lot of hate for this because Halloween was so beloved by fans that they didn't want a reboot. They just wanted another sequel.
Yeah.
The direction that they were just heading in this film, it was shot by shot of the original. Yeah. I thought we were going to get something different, completely different. Yeah. But we get the same movie that we got back in 1978. And
you know what though, we did get kind of different because it was through the dirty, dingy lens of Rob Zombie's vision, and Laurie was not so innocent like she was. Yeah. Making perverted jokes with her mom and shit like that.
The bagel.
Yeah, the bagel joke.
It was more modernized.
Yeah.
But we didn't get cell phones in this film.
We didn't. We didn't get cell phones. We did get a hot Danielle Harris, though, which I'm forever grateful for.
Halloween night, the boogeyman attacks kids who don't believe.
Oh no, Tommy! Boogeyman's gonna get me!
I mean, I like Scout. She did a great job as playing the new Laurie Strode. I thought she was fantastic. I thought Tyler Mane, for what it was, played an awesome Michael Myers. I mean, you got this beast like Michael Myers in this film, so this makes it completely different because this guy is, I mean, there was no stopping him in this.
No. Nope.
This guy was a beast.
He's come back for his baby sister. To do what?
I thought Malcolm McDowell was pretty awesome, though. I like him in a lot of movies too.
I thought it was cool to bring him as Sam Loomis, but at the same time, those are big shoes to fill. Donald Pleasance was so loved by the fans that it was like
no one's ever going to top Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. I mean, again, I like Malcolm McDowell. Actually, Malcolm McDowell was probably the best thing in this movie, which is ironic because of what happens in the next movie, which we'll get to in a minute. But I feel like I can live in a world where there's both Dr. Loomises and I would be perfectly fine. But Donald Pleasance, I mean, the freaking guy did James Bond before Halloween. I like Machete in there too.
Machete.
Danny Trejo.
Mikey, I was good to you, Mikey. I think they just wanted a movie or make a movie where it was like, oh, this is violent, this is disturbing, this is what we're getting now for horror films. Well, let's make a Halloween that's very graphic and disturbing. And it was just, it kind of went overboard. Yeah. And it didn't need to.
Michael, stop!
Departing from this Rob Zombie origin story, going on to the next Halloween, Halloween 2.
H2.
What
H2.
in the actual did they do, man?
Lock the place up tight. I don't want any surprises till I get there in the morning.
6 guys lift 1 stiff. That's one for the books.
Help! I'm trapped. Ah! Help me!
The thing that makes the first film so good was it was like he planned and he strategically, like, you know, just waited in the shadows to kill people, and he played games with them, and he'd set up their bodies for the next person to find. In this one, he just doesn't give a f***. He's just going around, like you said, stomping their heads in the ground like a million times. Like, why? All of a sudden now, why? Why are we getting this? But I mean, was this really Michael Myers in this film? Like, did you even feel like it was Michael Myers? Like, I felt like
I didn't feel like it was Michael Myers. I didn't even know what the hell I thought.
I felt like it was just like a random killer. It was like, he's not wearing his mask.
No,
he's walking around the streets like a hobo.
Yep.
And nobody notices this 7-foot tall, bearded hobo walking around the streets of Haddonfield. Oh, hey, that's Michael Myers. This movie was just a sloppy mess.
Since the authorities haven't been able to produce a body, do you think Michael's alive or dead?
Will he kill again?
Let me make things clear. Michael Myers is dead. D-E-A-D.
Everything was 180. Dr. Loomis was a douchebag.
He was.
She was a lot more reserved and like less of a kind of a typical teen this time around. Michael was over the top. Like, what the hell were they doing in this?
Like, who in this movie did you actually like? Who in this movie?
Nobody.
Did you root for?
I wanted to root for Dr. Loomis, but he was such a douche in this film that I was glad when freaking Michael came at him and
killed
fucked
him.
Yeah, and killed
him off.
This doesn't make sense. From the first freaking time you see the fucking white pony in this film. Jumping the shark? No. A pony fucking rode up and jumped the fucking shark. And then on top of that, it's a double whammy because he jumps the shark and then he has his wife come back again.
To ruin another movie.
Sherry Moon Zombie again. If you want a good white pony, you go to get the album from the Deftones. I mean, that's an awesome album. That one, and then you can go to Around the Fur, just as long as you don't watch this movie.
I've had 4 calls about Michael Myers today, all in the space of 10 minutes.
Are you a giant?
I'm sorry. I don't know if this was on purpose because they were rushing him to do the movie, but I feel like Rob Zombie just wiped his ass with this franchise at this point.
He never wanted any part of this film. I think it was just all for a paycheck. They must have paid him a good amount of money and was like, listen, the first one did well.
Yeah.
It was like one of the biggest Memorial Day opening films ever.
Evil is here.
I'm not me.
Who are you then?
I'm Michael Myers' sister.
Well, you know what? If for nothing else, we've come to this comparison. Rob Zombie is the Michael Bay of Halloween films.
Oh my!
Luckily enough, he made 2 films. I'm sure they made some money, but they decided to just like let it stew and sit for a while. Just, and that was the right move because at this point in time, I think we were probably a little fatigued. His filmmaking style and everything was overload.
It was, yeah.
By the second one, it was way too much overload, and I just couldn't find any room to like buy any more of his shit. As far as that stuff goes,
I blame him for wanting to actually listen to the studio and do another Halloween, which he swore up and down that he was not going to make another one. This movie was just an excuse to bring Michael Myers back and kill people. Yep. People that we did not give a shit about.
No.
Because everybody in this movie was so tormented and they were all battle scarred from the first experience of Michael Myers and the first Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Yeah.
That, hey, let's bring them back and let's just plant them there to kill them. And this is what we got. But, I mean, now we're moving on. And we're getting a better film eventually. But I am so thrilled to see this next Halloween. I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be scary. And I think it's going to be the Halloween that we deserve.
Definitely looking forward to it. But before we close out here, I did have a couple quick Q&A questions here just for my man Randy here. So we're going to get into it right now.
We're going to eat some Halloween candy while we go into these questions.
Exactly. Favorite mask?
The original. It has to be the original.
Exactly.
But if you took that out of play, Halloween 6.
Worst mask?
The CGI mask in Halloween H2O. And Halloween 5.
Jamie Lee Curtis versus Danielle Harris versus Scout Taylor Compton.
Oh my God, do I have to pick a favorite? So most fans would say Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously.
Yeah.
Which I love. By far, she has to be the number one Scream Queen, but I grew up with Danielle Harris, so I love Danielle Harris. Danielle Harris is, she's my Scream Queen.
Who was the best shape? Who was the shape?
Nick Castle.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And after that, who would you think was a close second?
Oh, God, George Wilbur.
And
part 4 and part 6.
Michael or Jason?
Before we did this video, I was talking to you how much I loved Friday the 13th, and I was such a huge Jason Voorhees fan. But over the years, man, I've grown to fall in love with Michael Myers way more than I do Jason. So it's got to be Michael Myers. I got him tattooed right here, and I got this right here.
Best Halloween movie?
Part 1, the original Halloween.
Worst Halloween movie?
I'm gonna go with H2O.
Yeah.
Just because of the CGI mask. I mean,
yeah.
How hard is it to keep a mask in a film? Why do you go to CGI?
Yeah.
And I think I don't like that movie, even over Busta Rhymes. But for the simple fact that they had to use a CGI mask in H2O, that didn't work for me. What would you say is your worst?
Oof. The worst one was definitely H2 from Rob Zombie. And I did not see Resurrection, so I can't say that it's the worst. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me and my friend Randy today.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
No,
I
no
appreciate
problem,
you
man.
asking me to come on here.
This is awesome, and I wanted to kind of do a retrospective on some type of legacy film that I really appreciated, and what better thing to do than now with Halloween, especially with the movie coming out. So let us know down below what you guys think about Michael Myers himself, about this video. Give us a thumbs up, a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you guys are on Instagram, please follow this gentleman here on his Instagram, which the link will be down below, and he is doing wonders on his Instagram. This guy likes to cosplay. He's dabbling in photography. He does some pretty cool arty, crafty shite, as it were.
Thanks, man.
And
Thank you.
for real, though, it was a pleasure having you on this. And you know, hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
I would love to,
and
man.
Thank you for schooling me on some Halloween horror stuff.
I wish we had more time and it wasn't so fast, because we would be talking about this for hours and hours. But
absolutely. Well, soon enough, man. Soon enough. And you know what? Again, I'm definitely going to be looking forward to the next time we do this. But until next time, guys, I'm Jay, and this is Randy, and we are out. Peace.